Hello, everyone, and welcome to the rescheduled session of the Myeloma Financial Coach chapter this month. My name is Audrey Burton-Bethke, and I am the Myeloma Crowd Community Manager. We're grateful for you joining us. Again, like as I said, for this rescheduled event, and we're grateful that Diana's joining us again today. I'm going to share the screen in order to share a couple of intro announcements as usual, and then we can get started. I will go a little quicker through these than normal because I'm sure the majority of you already know why you're here. So, as I said, this is the Myeloma Financial Coach chapter. This session is being recorded and will be sent out to all registrants within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. We want to thank our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Takeda Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Oncopeptides, Janssen Oncology, AbbVie, Sanofi, and Amgen Oncology and Genentech. The agenda for today's event is as follows. My introductions will go just one moment more. Diana will then present to us, and that will be followed by a Q&A. If you don't know Diana already, she is our featured speaker. She is a BCPA and a myeloma financial coach specializing in financial help for multiple myeloma patients. And she perfectly understands the financial issues facing patients because her husband was a former myeloma patient. Again, today we are talking about good debt versus bad debt, and we're differentiating between the two to make best financial decisions for us. And I'll turn the time over to Diana now to explain to us why she chose this topic and then get started. So Diana, go ahead. The time is now yours.
Great. Thank you very much, Audrey. Again, thank everybody for rejoining us for this retake on this webinar. I appreciate you being here. One of the things that's been happening with the COVID, especially, a lot of people have lost their jobs, and people have either had, especially when you have myeloma, I've found a lot of patients are having to go on FMLA, or they're going on Social Security disability, or they're losing income for a period of time. So I thought it would be very important for us to go over debt. What debt means, what is good debt, what is bad debt, how we can reallocate our financial household so that we can anticipate the cost of treatment going up, which it will do. So I wanted to make sure that we cover these things, especially going into the fall when we know costs are going to be going up for your Medicare plans. Of course, treatment plans, they never go down. New medications coming out, those things will never come down in the foreseeable future. So I just wanted to make sure that we cover these things. Okay, so like I said, the cost of treatment is never going to go down. As far as I know, I think it's just going to go up. So as a result, I've identified the three common areas that are the biggest debt influencers that can either make or break your financial security. So understanding debt, how to manage and reallocate debt can allow for more cash in your pocket, less debt that you have to finance or manage, and provide you with more opportunities to plan for your financial future and your family's financial future. And then also pay for the most important thing, your treatment. Some ways this topic is pertinent to myeloma patients and their families, including deciding how much debt to take on for life expenses, such as medical treatment costs, understanding where to secure the best type of debt or the best type of loans to meet your needs, and learning when and how to pay off or not to pay off debt. Next slide, please. So, debt introduction. Just the word debt makes you feel kind of weird. You get sweaty palms. I know I don't sleep very well at night if there's a lot going on, if there's unforeseen, extremely big cost that's coming on. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. I'm sure almost everyone's felt that at some time in their lives. So, but I understand working with patients and with clients that there's ways we can look at this and mitigate some of those horrible feelings. So when you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt and understand what your short and long-term goals are, you can turn debt into a more positive experience. While some of the concepts may seem easy, you may need to do a more thorough review of your big debt, such as your home. Should you pay that off? Should you refinance? Should you take equity out of it? All of these things before you make a move so that you can make sure you're doing the best strategy for you. We can do things, we think we're doing the right thing at the time, and we find out down the road that it wasn't, and that could be very, very costly. And sometimes you can't turn that boat back. So be aware, not consulting with a professional before you decide to pay off a mortgage can leave you with huge tax bills, and you also may not be taking advantage of interest rates or consider future liquidity needs. So once you put that money into the house and you no longer have it in a savings account, you don't have access to money when you need it, and you just can't sell the house to get cash because where are you going to live? So there's all sorts of things that can happen. Next slide. So why understanding debt is very important, because myeloma treatments for you all are so expensive. It isn't usual for a patient to dip. It's not unusual for a patient to dip into your savings, to use up credit cards to pay the debt, or even dip into their equity in their home to pay for medical expenses. And that can leave you in a very, very strained position later on. So I'm going to review those things in more detail: the mortgage, loans, and credit cards. So, of course, consideration has to be given to the increase in mortgage payments if you were to take the money out of that, and you and your spouse's ability to meet that obligation if something were to happen to either one of you. Consideration must be given in regards to your age, your ability to continue to work if you're still working, and the ongoing increase in the cost of your care. It's also very common for patients to increase credit card debt to pay medical expenses. That's very, very common. Understanding how this debt extends into other areas of your finances is also very, very important. It can help or hinder your financial goals or your needs. Unfortunately, I've spoken to many, many myeloma patients who will be who's still shouldering student loan debt for their own education. And I'm not talking about people who are just out of college or 10 years out of college. I'm talking about people in their 50s, 60s, or middle 60s that are still have their own student loan debt. And of course, they may have other members of their family who are, or children or high schoolers that are getting ready to go to college or in college. And increasing that debt, signing for loans for them can really break them financially. So we're going to talk about that issue as well, student loan debt. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of people who are in their 50s and 60s have student loan debt. And I think this is going to become more of an issue because there are so many students out there who are going to medical school and they will never be able to pay off some of this debt. Medical school, law school, some of these other um, specialties. Let me tell you my story, why it's so important. My husband was 10 years younger than me, and that makes a big difference when you go into Social Security and some other benefits that if your spouse dies and you're younger and you can't access those resources. In addition, when he found out he had MGUS, for some strange reason, he started doing things he said, I don't think I'm going to have a chance to do. So with that, he started buying houses and flipping houses. Of course, my sons and I were pulled into that, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoy painting and wallpapering and sanding and all those things. I enjoy doing that. But I was always also working at the time, and my boys were in school and in sports. So it a lot of that work fell on his shoulders. Well, he eventually started getting ill, and he could not do that. So he had not budgeted in finding contractors to do the work. In addition to that, he had a desire. He said he had always had it, though he had never shared that with me, to buy a boat. So I knew he liked fishing. I thought he was going to get a fishing boat. He came home one day and says, "Well, honey, I found a boat I'm going to buy, and I'm going to buy a boat." And I'm thinking, okay, fishing boat, no big deal. He showed me this boat. It was a 46-foot yacht. So I'm sweating buckets, right? I'm afraid because I know he's sick. We know there's going to be costs coming down. And he went and bought this $250,000 boat, and I am livid. His excuse was, an emotion. A lot of us do everything on emotion. I will sell it when we need to sell it. We'll sell it. Sounds good, but there may not be a buyer when you need to sell it. So he got the boat. Then he decided he needed to have a truck to carry all the things to the boat. So he went to pay cash for a truck. And guess what? He eventually did also get that fishing boat. So I can't hardly stand it, right? I'm fearful of our finances. He had saved all his life, and now he's spending as if, he wasn't going to be around for the next year or so. And that was an emotional thing, and it did affect us because after he passed, I'm having to, because I couldn't shoulder the cost for all these things. I was selling things in a fire sale, and we'd put all the cash into these things, and now you can't get all that cash back. I had sold the house that we had built, it had custom built, and it was at a fire sale. It was not a seller's market. It was a buyer's market. The boat, nobody was buying. And I was blessed that somebody came around and said, can I, I want to buy that boat. And was able to sell it, but again, at a loss. The slip that the boat was in at a loss. The fishing boat sold to my brother, which is great. It was in the family, but again, at a loss. So some of the decisions we make now can be very costly, not just for a short term, but these effects can last the rest of your life. And the savings my husband had, they're gone. They are gone. So it is affecting me the rest of my life. And that's why understanding debt, how debt affects you, is very important. Next slide. So reasoning with the concept of debt. So we tend to make financial decisions based on emotions. We buy cars based on how good they look. Um, we buy houses because it's bigger and it's just as nice as our other friend's house. Or, we buy things based on emotion. We place trades in our investment accounts based on emotion, not necessarily based on fact or doing your due diligence with history and finding out what those companies are doing. So the effect of taking emotions out of it to make better decisions can last a lifetime. When deciding what to do with the many types of loans and reasons for the loans, you should always take every loan on its own merit. Remember, all debt, every bit of debt you have, is bad debt if you cannot afford it. Next slide. So these are some of the things we're going to cover in understanding debt. What is good debt and how good debt can turn into bad debt? What causes the change? What is bad debt and why is this different for different people? Historically, mortgages were considered good debt, but are they always? I know a lot of people have a hard time with that one. Should you pay off your mortgage? And that is a big question when you have an illness that's very expensive and you have a mortgage and you're older and you may be retiring or thinking about retiring. That's one of the first things people want to do is pay off their mortgage. But is that a good enough excuse to do that, or is it going to bite you later on? So when does the cost of a college education becomes bad debt? Credit cards can be good or they can be bad. And we're going to cover those more specifically. So debt is everything that you owe. And according to credit bureaus, it's good to have credit cards. They're always trying to throw credit cards at you, but it can also be what you have the ability to owe. So if you have a credit card or 4 or 5 credit cards, and you only, and as I say, the total of those, the credit limits are $30,000, but you've only used 2,000. That's good because you're less than 30%. You've used less than 30% of that credit line for all those cards combined. But you also have the ability to use that entire credit line, maxing yourself out, which means now you're at higher risk because why did you need all that money, right? And now you have to pay those things back. So now you're at credit risk. So it is good in one hand and it's bad in the other. So that can also be the difference between the expected value of something, such as a car, and the actual value. And an example is you purchase a new car off the lot for, let's say, $30,000. Good luck finding one for $30,000 right now. Then you drive it off the lot 1 mile down the road, and that same vehicle can now be valued at $24,000, depending on what kind of vehicle you get. But they usually drop consistent as soon as you drive them off the lot. Now, it is considered a used car, but guess what? You're paying a new car price for that used vehicle that just a moment ago was a new car with full value. And your loan, that can also include interest, is more than the new value of the car. The car is a depreciating asset. And some of you may have also had purchased a car, had it for a little while, was in a car accident. You have a lien on that car. You're paying the note on that car, and then it's totaled. The car is totaled. You get the check from the insurance company. The check may not cover the full value of that car because it's a depreciating asset, but you still have to meet that obligation. So you have to get another car. Your insurance company, you were paying the insurance company. They paid for that car. You paid your deductible, and now you still have to pay pay out the rest of that loan. So it could be something that you look at. Do I really need a car? And in some cases, you may be able to buy a new car for the price of a used car. So there are so many things you can look at when you're making these decisions, and they all affect your pocket. The same pocket. The money comes in one pocket, goes in one pocket, comes out of the same pocket. Next slide. So understanding debt. Generally speaking, depreciating assets, like I said before, such as cars, furniture, clothes, are considered bad debt. Historically, and student loans were considered good debt. However, this isn't always the case. Credit cards were considered bad debt. Again, as I mentioned before, that isn't always the case. So let's sort all of these things out. So, a good rule of thumb when trying to determine if debt is good is ask yourself about this question anytime you're thinking about buying a car, taking out a loan. Ask yourself this question: is this debt going to pay you back more than what you put into it? And by that I mean, will this debt increase your net worth or help you manage your finances more effectively? Will this debt allow you to buy things that you need, and I highlighted need, and allow you to handle emergencies or save time and money? By investing in myself now, will it pay me back in time? Next slide. So factors to consider: separating good and bad debt. If you're considering, is it going to appreciate or produce income? Is a loan for education or lifestyle expenses? What is the loan ratio to your income, and how much other loan debt do you have? How long will it take you to pay back the loan? And what are the terms of the loan, including interest rates? Can any of the terms change? Is the interest tax deductible? Are there any alternatives to non-debt loans? So let's look at loans. What are the advantages of leveraging? We hear leveraging a lot when you're talking about people who have a lot of money, but leveraging can be used in for everybody can take advantage of leveraging. So you can use that with interest rates. So take advantage of low interest rates. Car loans could be cheaper to purchase a new car versus a new one. I went to purchase a Volvo, and I was going to get a used one after I totaled my car, and because there's discounts, something you need to be aware of, discounts and options you have available to you. The buying the new car was going to be $3,000 to $4,000 cheaper than taking a used car that was 3 years old. So these are things, especially coming up when everything starts opening up. If you need a car and you can wait, that may be something for you to look at, because all of a sudden there's going to be a gluttony of cars. There's going to be a lot of cars everywhere. Right now there's a shortage, supposedly, but that may be a time for you to wait and take advantage of saving money later on down the road. So refinancing at a lower rate to pay off a high interest rate loan, such as credit cards. This could put more money in your pocket or allow you to pay off medical debt or save for future expenses with that additional cash in hand. Through debt consolidation with lines of credit or taking advantage of 0% interest cards and transferring those high interest rate balances into that card, you can increase your cash flow and build credit. Then it can allow you to make better financial moves in the future. So doing something like that, if you know there's going to be a big purchase you got to take later on and you're going to need to take a loan out for it, building your credit, doing something like this will give you better interest rates in the future, especially if you're going to buy a car or refinance a mortgage or take out a mortgage. Next slide. So mortgages as good debt. When are they considered good debt? Mortgages are considered the king of all debt because it's perhaps the largest asset and equity producing investment most people own. So equity producing, which means the value of your property's gone up. Anybody who owns a home right now, anywhere in the country, unless you're in the middle of the water right now, unfortunately for a lot of people, you're going to find that the value on your home has increased. And most of us have increased across the country significantly. Now, is that going to stay that way? We know 2008, 2009, when the housing market crashed. No, they won't stay that way. Everything that goes up will come down to some degree. But Mortgages are also considered good debt because you can deduct that interest. There's been a lot of talk about that going away. Hopefully, it won't. I don't see it going away in the next 3.5 years, but possibly down the road that could be back on the table. So it's something to be aware of. And that might be an opportunity if you have enough cash sitting aside to maybe pay off that mortgage, especially if you're going to retirement, because there's really not that much benefit to it as far as taking deductions. So why we talk about equity. So let's say you make a home purchase with a 30-year mortgage at 235,000. It appreciates 3% per year, which in today's market, as most places, is very conservative. Places have gone to 30, 35% increases. It will be worth 485,000 in 30 years, and that's very, very conservative. So at that point, you can take out equity in the house. You can, use it for additional retirement funds. And there's a lot of things you can do with that paid off mortgage. Home equity lines of credit are also generally good because if they are secured with a low interest rate, the funds can be used to pay off higher interest rate loans or credit cards and things like that. Provide home improvements, which can in turn also increase the value of that property. So mortgage as a good debt means it's a probably appreciating asset. Next slide. It can increase your net worth, a tax deduction of interest for now, and access to increased equity down the road. Next slide. So mortgage as a bad debt, don't. We don't hear this very often. So despite the many benefits of owning a mortgage, some borrowers are so incentivized by the idea of living debt-free, paying off their mortgage with the cash they have, and they may have a problem down the road. So there are consequences to doing that, which means loss of cash that you may need for expenses later on down the road, or you're maybe not taking advantage of investing that in the market. If you have an interest rate in a mortgage that's low, and in the market where you can invest that money in and your return can be a lot higher, then you're actually throwing away money. You're taking money and putting it to the low interest rate, paying it off, when you could be putting in something that could be bringing money to you, benefiting you. So that is a um, example of using mortgage as a bad debt. Another issue is buying too much home, and we're all familiar with all this happening in 2008, 2009. A lot of people were getting these interest rate loans. They were buying houses they really could not afford. The houses were overvalued. Then the market crashed. The values of the houses they were under were higher than the actual value. The false inflated value was more than the actual value of the houses, and they had mortgages that were so much more than the actual value of the house, and then they had a hard time selling them. People were walking away from homes. So another issue is when the cost is high but your value may decline when the market corrects. In this case, you may lose money when you need or want to sell. In the case that I had to sell, um, it was not a seller's market, it was a buyer's market. So if your mortgage is with a variable rate, you need to consider the possibility of that rate increasing and not being able to manage the increased payments. And I say that especially when you know that the cost of healthcare is going up. How is that going to bite into your ability to maintain your regular daily expenses with you and your family, and to take care of the mortgage as well? So mortgage rates are really low now. People have these variable rates and they may as well be low as well, but it might be a good time to look at those and see if it's better to put it in a low fixed rate um, mortgage. You don't want to get caught in that same kind of bubble with interest rates rising, because interest rates will go back up again. Again, mortgage is a bad debt. Lack of sufficient savings for all home related expenses. You buy a house thinking, I have the house, I have the interest, um, the insurance, and I have the taxes, and that's it. Well, no, there's maintenance and there's everything else. And a lot of people don't plan for those things, especially when they've not had a house before. My son is one of those. If you don't intend to live in the home for long, rule of thumb, 5 years is a break even to recoup the cost of buying a home. There's a possible tax liability as to how and when you sell that house. Inability to put 20% down, leaving you to have to pay for private mortgage insurance. And the private mortgage insurance is for the protection of the mortgage company, not for you. And that cost could be extremely high. You're new to the area. You don't really know what is in the area. A lot of people are buying houses sight unseen, especially right now when they don't want to be left out because everybody's buying houses or they want to get away from the city because of COVID. And they're buying houses and they're moving in and finding it was not a good idea. It's not the ideal situation that they thought it was going to be. Another case for not buying a home is or having a large mortgage. You have a lot of other debt, such as student loans or credit card debt, which can make it very difficult to maintain all of your obligations. Possibility of a career change or move or loss of income due to illness or disability. Um, a lot of these things need to be taken into consideration as to what kind of mortgage you have, if you have the ability to reallocate or refinance that mortgage for a lower interest rate. And even if you're going to sell the mortgage, the house you have now, when you sell it, right now is a great time to sell probably, and then purchase another house. You live with a significant other, and I've heard of this happening all too often is people are buying houses with a significant other, and then the significant other doesn't work out and they're stuck with one person paying this mortgage. Those things can be very, very difficult, and they may end up having to sell a house and losing all the money they put into it. Or you'd rather have a landlord and not be concerned about upkeep. A lot of people don't realize how much maintenance there is in owning an outright home. Um, I've heard a lot of people, and myself included, my weekends were gone because I was out working in the yard. So if you buy and the mortgage obligation cannot be met individually by each one of you, each spouse, in the event one passes, then that is a problem. And if you are in not a seller's market, you're in a buyer's market, which means you're not going to get probably what you want or what that house is valued at. So the next is pros of paying off a mortgage. Of course, when you pay off a mortgage, you no longer have to worry about that debt or the rate of returns, or if it's going to be higher than your returns on any of your investments. However, when you pay that mortgage off, you're going to lose liquidity and using that money for something else in the future, like investments making more money. You free up income for other things, including increased and ongoing medical expenses, which is one way to look at it. And you can stop paying PMI if you didn't put 20% down on a mortgage. And a lot of people don't realize this, and the mortgage company is not going to tell you. I used to work in mortgages. Is if you're paying PMI when you buy the house without 20% down, and you're paying that for year after year, and you're not keeping up with now you have met that 20% obligation on that house, you can drop that PMI, which makes more money in your pocket. A lot of people are not aware of that. You can convert equity to cash, convert the equity from the house into cash for using in something else. And you can consider retiring and eliminate the debt as long as it doesn't take away your ability to meet other obligations, both short-term obligations and long-term obligations if you have a family. It's also a way of reducing debt now to reduce expenses for a surviving spouse, as long as that doesn't reduce their living income needs as a result. Next slide. So the negatives of paying off a mortgage is loss of liquidity when mortgage is paid off, loss of access to tax deductions. When mortgage is paid off, you no longer have that credit boost because that is a really big boost on your credit ratings. Inability to put the money towards other investments. So the decision to pay off mortgages shouldn't be made after careful thought. Do research and work with a financial advisor who can study your personal circumstances more closely. And I can tell you this, when you work with a financial advisor, they will look at that debt, when that debt is supposed to pay off, how is that going to affect your retirement income, boosted or everything. They'll look at every single scenario. You'll be sitting there amazed, and they'll give you a graph as to this is where we're pulling money out. This is what we're pulling money out. And this is where your taxes are going to be. This is how it's amazing if you sit down and work with a financial advisor. Um, and the things that you never thought of, and you realize they are going to be really saving you money and boosting your retirement income, or boosting that cash in hand that you'll need to pay off medical debt and any other debt that you may have. So the decision to pay off a mortgage sooner or later is not always clear. Student loans as a good debt. Okay, so investing in yourself can have great benefits, especially when it involves education. Education is something somebody can't take away from you. And education is considered an asset when its benefits or payback exceeds the expenditure to acquire the education. Student loans don't necessarily lose value over time as far as the value they're giving you. And if you make the payments on time, that's even better. And can reflect positively on your credit report. Student loans, that's a bad debt. Everybody who's had a student loan realize those things never go away. I had one $93.31. I paid that for years. And when I met my husband, he said, we're going to take care of that because I can't stand it. And so he took care of that. And I was fortunate and I never had any more student debt. It was only, at the time, it was only, I think, $12,000. But for me, that was a lot of money. Okay, so more than 45 million students in the United States owe more than $1.7 trillion of student loan debt. And people over the age of 60 owe 86 billion in student loan debt. And that's a lot. I'd never even thought about that until I started doing research. 40,000 people age 65 and over are having funds garnished from their Social Security checks, tax refunds, or other federal payments as a result of default on their loans. Over 14 million student loan borrowers aged 35 to 49 and 6.2 million borrowers aged 50 to 61 carry an average balance of $42,000 for their own education. The financial debt becomes even more difficult if there are college students in the house expecting additional help from their parents. This can be an opportunity to educate those students on the realities of debt and the real cost of college. Junior college may be a way to go for the first 4 years, and then maybe look at a better school for graduate school. A rule of thumb, and this is really interesting, a rule of thumb when deciding whether or not to take out a student loan is you should not borrow more in total than you can expect to earn in your first year on the job. Now, that throws out a lot of those Ivy League schools, private schools, and a lot of them, surprisingly, there are a lot of people going to some of these Ivy League schools that are racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And this is just for the first 4 years. This is for a bachelor's degree. And they come out of school making maybe $30,000. That's the average for a lot of these students, not the higher echelons, Yale and Harvard, and also depends on what degree you're getting. So it's something to really think about, especially if you are a parent and you're in you have Social Security, you have limited income, and you're still paying your debt. It's something to consider when you have kids in the household wanting to go to school. So, how do you manage student debt? So, remember the moratorium on federal student loan as a result of COVID is going to expire at the end of this month. So, either look at refinancing those loans at a lower interest rate, making sure you're getting caught up on those interest payments. So, at least paying at least not paying at least the interest that is due is just going to increase your payments. It's going to increase that loan balance, and it's a horrible thing to have to carry this because a lot of students have so much debt that they can't see being able to buy homes. They can't see being able to have a family, get married and have a family. So it's a lifestyle that the student loan can affect. And when you go to file bankruptcy, student loans are very difficult to discharge, even in bankruptcy. They will hang with you. So the case for credit cards. If used responsibly, and that is a key word, credit cards can provide reasonable paybacks, such as helping in the credit mix to increase your credit scores if managed properly. Cashback rewards could help you pay for other things without cash out of your pocket. Credit monitoring, opportunity to build credit, and help selling disputes with vendors. Because if you use your credit card, if there's a problem, you don't have to pay until the dispute is taken care of. Good credit can help you refinance or make a purchase on credit at lower interest rates. Keeping this good standing can help those who are chronically ill take advantage of lower interest rates when they need to take advantage of loans. So exercise mindful spending and don't let payments fall behind. Spend only what you can afford. And I'll share this with you. My husband, years and years ago, when he started working at UPS, used to be a truck driver. And he used to go to these really, really huge, huge, huge houses. Sometimes there were 15, 20,000 square feet in Shaker Heights. And Shaker Heights is known across the country. Um, but he would always go to these houses and there wasn't any furniture in the house. And he couldn't understand why there wasn't any furniture. And he finally spoke to someone and he said, because we can afford the house, but they couldn't afford furniture. And that is not uncommon. I have even driven around in really nice places here in Louisville, and you can find that all across the country. It's buying on emotion and not buying what you can afford. So, to summarize this entire thing, when considering how to manage debt, determine if increasing or paying off debt is the right thing for you to do based on your needs and your goals. Ask yourself if taking on more debt is going to pay back more than what you are going to it's that you're giving. Make sure your debt does not overextend your ability to make more than the monthly payments, or better yet, pay it off when the balances are due. Try to always be balanced in your approach to debt. You don't want to be debt heavy and you don't want to be cash poor. You don't want to be house rich and cash poor. Consider your entire financial situation and comfort level before making a significant purchase or investment, regardless of how you choose to finance it and regardless of how much money you make. Next slide. If you have sufficient equity in a home and you have a lot of debt, see if you can refinance some of the equity to pay off the high interest rates, loans or cards. With mortgage equity, interest rates being so low, you can perhaps still save money and direct it to savings or to help you pay off medical expenses or meet those medical needs. Review your medical debt. If you think your bills are wrong, seek out help from co-patient to help you resolve this issue. Again, over 80% of medical bills, especially if you're in the hospital for a period of time, are incorrect. And it's never on the benefit of you. It's also always the benefit of the hospital. Strange how that works. Review your insurance plan, private and Medicare. Make sure you're taking advantage of all outside financial resources that are available for myeloma patients that can help you keep money in your pocket and meet all your other financial obligations. You can go to www.healthtree.org and review all resources that are available to you, including coaches, access to coaches, educational videos and articles, financial resources, sites, and so much more. Don't assume you don't qualify for financial assistance and don't wait until it's too late to do anything about your current financial situation. An illness such as myeloma can take over all aspects of your life. Here are a few things you can do to gain more control over your finances that are rather easy for anyone to do. Check your credit, make sure everything on there is right, and check it often. Review your debt and have their assigned rates. And try calling up credit card companies and ask them if you could have your rate reduced or ask them if you can change the way you pay out on your credit card if you're in a crunch. A lot of credit card companies will be willing to do that because at least you're paying something to them. If necessary, seek out the help of a credit counseling company that can help you. Be mindful when you do this because some of them are, you can get a lot of work done without having to pay. And a lot of these companies can also be like scam companies, especially right now, with a lot of people trying ways to make money. You don't want to give out information over the phone without verifying who you're giving that information to. And they will ask for social security numbers and dates of birth, all of this stuff. And you don't want that information to be stolen. Perhaps refinance a mortgage or equity line of credit at lower rates while the rates are low, because eventually they will come up. Next slide, please. So myeloma is unique for everyone. Each patient has a different profile, such as age, social security, social economic background, job security, health status, treatment costs, access to financial assets, marital and family status, insurance status, debt, credit status, retirement status, etc. And all those factors should be considered when making financial decisions, every single one and more. And when you sit down with a financial advisor, they will bring these up, and you'll be surprised at how it's like a puzzle, how all of these things fit into place. So many of the decisions my husband made did not take these things into consideration. He was doing things on emotion, what he thought he wanted, and his focus was very narrow and short. And I can understand to a degree, but it was very narrow and short focused. So consequently, after his death, my financial security was all but eliminated. I had to make decisions without the benefit of having the best time to do them, such as selling the house and the boat in a bad seller's market. We did not have significant funds from savings because he used it to pay off a lot of his medical bills, which would have been written off at his death because it would have been part of his estate. We had homes that were purchased for potential income that sat for periods of time without selling or generating income, which again was a loss in liquidity or cash on hand. Don't find yourself in this situation. We have a tendency to be very private about our finances until we're in crisis mode, and sometimes even then, we don't seek out help that we need. Seek out the advice of a financial advisor. Seek out me. I'll be glad to help you. I'm a financial advisor, has been one for over 20 years. Be glad to give anyone information that can help your situation, so that you can continue to live the way you want to live, so that you can meet your financial obligations, especially so you can meet your medical obligations and that you can stay on treatment. Thank you for joining me. I would be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. And I'm so glad that your internet worked all the way through.
Yay!
I am so happy. I'm asking you to start your video once more so that they can see you as they ask their questions. So let me know if that works. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yep, there we are.
Okay, so to start off, as we wait for people's questions to come in, one of my questions was, I know you said you don't see the drug prices coming down any sooner, which is extremely unfortunate. We know that there's patient programs through pharmaceutical companies that help patients sometimes pay for this medication. Is that one of the first resources you would recommend to people, or would you recommend first that they look in other places?
Well, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, and even some of the nonprofits like Leukemia Lymphoma Society and all of those, they always suggest, if you can, to try the pharmaceutical companies first. Like Leukemia Lymphoma Society, a lot of people, I've been trying to discourage them from doing that. It's taking the money, the $11,000 they have with them, which can go really quickly when you're paying
Yeah.
for cancer drugs,
Yes.
and go to the pharmaceutical company first, get that, and then use the myeloma maybe to pay for premium costs for your insurance.
Mm,
So there's ways to allocate depending on what your needs are, depending on what kind of insurance you have, Medicare or not, that will help. In addition, I'm finding that um, there's a big push now to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, and that's what the new administration is trying to do. And of course, we hear a lot of these things all the time, and it seems like it never gets through because everything
yeah.
else is more pressing. We'll see how that goes. But there are things you can do, and I'm surprised at how many people are not aware of what's out there. I'm surprised that every hospital does not have the financial navigator or the social worker who has the time, and that's big right now. They are
Yeah.
overwhelmed right now, the time, or even know that the resources are out there. So with HealthTree and with the coaches that can help direct people, it's invaluable. I
Yeah.
encourage everybody to reach out because you don't know what you don't know until you find out, right?
Yeah. Rand is echoing that statement, saying the hospital we are dealing with has not been of much help regarding financial help. Their question is, are you more likely to get approved for help from the hospital or center if you have less in your savings account?
You mean for the hardship at the hospital? Is that where they're referencing if you get help by the hospital? What does that mean?
Yeah, if you, yeah, get help from the hospital or center that you're being treated at. Yes, they confirmed. Yes, that's what they're talking
Okay.
about.
So a lot of times when you go and ask for that, they're not necessarily, they don't always ask what you have in your savings account. They'll just say what, a lot of times they'll say, what do you think you can pay? And if you just offer, can I pay, before they bring it up, if you can say, can
Hmm.
I pay $20 a month? A lot of times they will accept that, and make sure that you have, and a lot of times they will send that to you in writing, and you set that payment plan up. It's to your advantage to look at those things even before you become stressed out with those medical expenses,
Okay.
and you can still get those the other financial resources elsewhere.
Okay. Great. Cindy is saying, I am told by my staff at my doctor's office that I would qualify for financial aid if my yearly income is below the 500% of the poverty level, which for me is 64,000. Is this correct? And what is considered income? Is the money received from the sale of a home
Income,
considered income?
no, that's really not considered income. Income is usually when it's gainful employment.
Okay.
How are they going to know you sold your home unless you offer that information? Never offer more information than anybody asks. We can get in trouble with those kind of things, giving way too much information, because they'll try to find a way to get it, right?
Don't trust
Um,
anyone. No, I'm just kidding.
right. It's generally gainful employment, and they will look at not just that one person, they'll look at household if you're talking about poverty level. Again, if you have medical debt, anything over $500, reach out to Triage Cancer. They are partnered with Co-Patient, and there's other groups out there as well. But they are really understanding. They really will help work with you all on looking at your bill. You just send a picture of it, and they will go run with it to make sure the bill is correct in the first place. And while that's being researched, you don't have to worry about paying anything on it.
Wow. Okay. That's good to know. Um, we're more than open to any more questions. I'd like to talk a little bit more, Diana. I'm fascinated by that fact that of how much student debt is owed for.
I
um
don't know if you can hear me, but I cannot hear you.
oh, did you go out? Let's see. Oh, there we go. Are you
Oh,
back?
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm back.
I had faith. Just wait one more moment. um, my question, I guess more of a statement. I'm fascinated by the amount of people over 60 years old who are still shouldering that student debt. Are there payment programs for them, or is there anything that could help them in their payments?
No,
It's
there
something
isn't
they're stuck with.
refinancing options because it's usually federal debt. That is looked at completely different from other debt, and that's why they
Right.
will not discharge it in bankruptcy usually as well.
Okay. Good to know. Um, one of the things I'm trying to remember what slide it was because it made me think of um something. I should have written it down because I was like, oh, I want to talk to her about that.
While you're looking at that, what I really found surprising when I was doing a lot of research was not to take out a student loan if it's not what the total student loan for 4 years is not going to pay you back what you'd make the first year after you graduate from
Right.
college.
Yeah.
That is mind-boggling because you're thinking, if you look at me when I graduated, there's no way. There is absolutely, of course, college wasn't expensive as it is now, but to think that you can come out of school now with some of these schools charging, where my sister and her daughters went, the tuition is like $80,000 a year. Well,
Yeah.
she worked there, so all of their education was free all the way through
Wow.
their graduate degrees. But who's going to come out making that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Their
that's
first year.
frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Rand was saying, for those on Medicare specifically, can people use the grants from foundations for out-of-pocket max amounts
For deductibles, co-insurance, yes, they can use that for deductibles as well.
for a grant? Like they can use the money they get from the grants.
Hmm.
Okay.
Like I believe the HealthWell will do the co-insurance as well. So and for those who aren't aware, HealthWell was closed for a lot this year. They are now open for multiple myeloma.
And what is that?
HealthWell is an organization that they also have grants. I think theirs is either 11 or 13,000 per year, just like Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, to help pay for costs of medical expenses. Now, they may also say you cannot be on Medicare. So when you start looking at these grants, they're changing as they go. They're not always stagnant in the way their criteria. So be aware of that. I've noticed also that some of the pharmaceutical companies are saying, go find money elsewhere and then come to us. So it's becoming very competitive out there. And it's also another thing there's some, I think Pfizer is in the court now because they've been offering a lot of their co-payments and grants to people, but they also are increasing the cost of their pharmaceuticals, which means if you go to Medicare, they're getting more paid back to them, right? So
Mm,
there is an argument that some of these grants may be going away, which will be devastating
yeah.
to people who have chronic or long-term or expensive illnesses.
Oh
There's
gosh.
going to be a lot more in court regarding these things because they're
Oh
thinking
my
the
goodness.
pharmaceutical companies are getting kickbacks.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's
I
heavy.
know. It is, it
Um,
is, it is.
Rand was confirming that currently Healthwell is still for Medicare folks as well as LLS, which is a great, a great thing. Um, one of my questions, again, kind of regarding the cost of prescription drugs, one of the things you also hear is that generic forms of these medications are going to be made available as they are in other countries outside of the US. What's your reaction when you hear this? Do you see it anytime soon? Do you see it even being possible in this country the way that healthcare is,
Oh, that's been going
how
on
it
for a
is?
long, yeah, that's been going on for a long time. And then you have to worry about, which is really interesting, the big, the big, I guess, a bully on a block, for lack of a better way, is the pharmaceutical companies because they make their money. That's where they make their money. And
Yeah,
if they can, and they try to make sure these patents on these medications go out for a long period of time, and they make it almost impossible for competitors to come in. Um, Revlimid is going to be opened up, I believe, in the next year or two for an Indian company. There's going to be another biosimilar for Revlimid, which means the prices are going to drop. And they, uh, Glasgow Smith, or they fought that for a long time, and that's why the company had to hang out for a while before they can come out full fledged. So the name of the game is who's going to make the money. And if we can go across the borders, and a lot of people will still go to Canada, but get some medications, or they'll go somewhere else. Of course, you're at risk of being caught when you bring those things back in. Um, Sometimes that's the only way they can get their medications and can afford it.
right,
I think if we had the right lobbyists and we had enough people in healthcare advocacy, I think it's beginning to see it. I think it has to be the right person in offices, not just one,
right.
to realize and to have maybe experienced it before they realize things have to be done. I think
Interesting.
that's what it takes.
That's an interesting
At
take.
least a conversation has started.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see, it's kind of a precursor to our next, our event. Um, is it next week or in a couple weeks? I think it's next week. Um,
The 21st.
yeah. Do you see a lot of changes being made to Medicare for the 2022 year?
There are more counties opening up and states opening up Medicare. And when you open up Medicare, there's a lot more plans. So it's becoming even more complex than it used to be. They have not yet, and I tried to find out, they have not yet announced all the changes, which is very difficult for people who need to make the decisions now.
Yeah,
So a lot of people don't understand this open enrollment periods for people who have Medicare, already have Medicare, or birthday happened to fall during this period of time to enroll or change their Medicare, Medicaid, Advantage, or Medigap plans. So for every person out there who's listening, who has currently a Medicare, Medicaid, or combination plan, it's a good idea to look at what you have, especially if you've only been in there for a year. Because if you've been in there a year and you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, and we're going to go over this in detail, but I just want you to look at this so you have time, then you have options to get out of that and get into a Medigap that might be to your advantage. So there's a lot to look forward to in our next one next week on the 21st. I have done a lot of work. I've done a lot of the legwork for you. So I hope you all can invite your friends, anybody who has Medicare, who have illnesses, um, tell them to tune in.
Awesome. Thank you, Diana. Seville says, I tried to make all my major financial decisions before starting my tandem stem cell transplants. I was concerned that I may not be in the right state of mind during treatment. Plus, I simplified and automated as much as possible. I was basically trying to protect my assets from myself. And now I'm trying to normalize myself again. So thank you for all the tips. There's always room for improvement. First of all, props to you for doing that. That is
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
wise. That is so wise. And
It
so,
is. You're so right. You never make decisions you're almost incompetent. You know, I saw my husband when he was going through treatment. You are incompetent. And they'll tell you at the hospital, don't make any important decisions because
right.
you absolutely can't.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Wonderful, Diana. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to close out with just a couple of outro announcements. The first of which I'm going to share here Diana's contact information. You're welcome to contact her. We'll also include this information in the follow-up email that's sent within 48 hours of the event's conclusion. You can contact Diana. Her services are free. She really, really wants to help myeloma patients and their families. So please contact her. She's an amazing resource. And Diana, we're so grateful for all that you do. Our
Okay.
next meeting will occur on the 21st of September, so just next week, and we're going to be discussing open enrollment for Medicare and what you and your loved ones need to know. Please, 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 as Diana was saying, invite your friends, those on Medicare that also might have different diseases. We want people to be aware of these fundamentals and changes. Again, as Diana said, she's done a lot of the legwork for us, so we're able to come and better understand. And then I'll just add in addition that next October meeting, the first Tuesday in October, which I believe is the 5th, I could be wrong, is going to be like the whole session will just be question and answers for Diana, for you to come and ask about your specific questions or your specific circumstance in the Medicare enrollment period. You may be interested in upcoming events that we have in the myeloma crowd community. Tomorrow at, oh, this is not correct because this was from last week. I'm like, I thought we already did those. So disregard this slide. Although there is a webinar coming up on the 25th. It's a myeloma crowd roundtable with doctors Ola Landgren and Rafael Fonseca, two world-renowned myeloma specialists. We're going to be talking about where we are and where we're going in myeloma, assessing the current state of myeloma. So you can head to myelomacrowd.org/events and make sure that you're signed up for that one. It's a really unique and amazing opportunity to hear from such experts and be able to ask them your questions. Again, a thank you to our sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, Takeda Oncology, Karyopharm Therapeutics, Adaptive Biotechnologies, Oncopeptides, Janssen Oncology, AbbVie, Sanofi, Amgen Oncology, and Genentech. And thank you so much for joining us today, especially with the reschedule. We're glad that you're here watching live or even watching the recording. And Diana, again, thank you for your shared knowledge. And we hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Bye now.